Hello YouTube, back with the next BattleBots review, and today I have the Vex Robotics Tombstone kit. It has two variations you can build. I've got the one with the flat back right here. This is the one you typically would build. And I've got the red blade, because I like that one better, honestly, but you get both. Here's the blue blade. Although, oddly enough, it's a lot bluer on the camera here than it actually is on here. It's more of a turquoise blue, I think, when you actually look at it on, if you see it in real life, at least for me anyway. But you have the option, doesn't matter. I mean, they're pretty much identical. The only difference is if you look at the plate on top, it's actually shorter if you use the blue one versus the red one, and the blade is actually shorter as well. See if I put the two together. And of course, you can build the original. If you like the other Tombstone a bit better, here's the back plate that goes with it. See if I can get a good shot of it when it's a little further back. Yeah, look at that. That'll generally get the idea, I think. Very well designed. I mean, it's very sturdy. I mean, you could do a lot. I mean, what's really nice is I don't know if you can see it that well, but I'm turning the wheels here at the back, and you should see the blade at the front move ever so slightly forward. It does better when you actually roll it on the ground. But they went through a lot of detail to make this work. I mean, if you look carefully, I don't know if you can see it that well, but you got the chain here that helps power it. You can see that moving as I move the chain. Yeah, there's the chain moving right along here. There's the chain that powers the weapon. You got the weapon mount. I mean, you got the Tombstone, logo there, if you want to call it. The name of the robot is on here. I mean, you got the mock versions of the the motors, the gearboxes, which you're actually building. You're actually building pretty much the entire thing. Now, granted, they gave you a whole lot of parts. They gave you a lot of gears. They gave you a lot of components. This is going to take you a while. I mean, a couple of hours to put this together. It definitely took me a while. I definitely did it hour-long intervals, and even then my fingers were sore after all that. Although I did eventually get the kit put together here. One thing you want to make sure is when the instructions are pretty clear, but they're not as clear as they could be because there are multiple metal rods here included, including the one for the weapon. And if you look underneath, there's actually two rods connecting the drive here. I don't know if you can see it that well. It's difficult for me to get a good shot of it so that I can show you. Let's see if I can... Yeah, if you see the blue gears here on this side, see if I can... Yeah, there's some blue gears like right here, like connected here. You can see them on the... It's not easy to get... There you go. This is probably the best way I'm going to do it. But there are 3 gears here. And one thing you'll find out is, unfortunately, they have a separate gear. They have a separate metal axle for each wheel. I think it's kind of dumb because that not only that meant that the axle can fall out and come apart pretty easily. But I mean, it should be one solid rod. It's kind of common sense when you think about it. But you can see, there's a lot of detail that goes into this. Let's see. If the wheels can be moved individually. And yeah, you can see this is the mechanism that makes it all go, eventually. You can't see it going that well, though, but it definitely works. I'm going to also demonstrate how it all works as well, so you're gonna get to see. I mean, you may have gotten a little taste of that at the toy fair. Cause, I mean, they had videos of the toy in action, although it was a little, kind of a little shaky there at times. But one thing I should make note is that when you're assembling this kit, definitely make sure you have it right because it's difficult to take apart. Generally, especially if you're further in. Like when you start putting like bigger sections together, you'll actually probably end up pulling it apart more than you want. I know I had that issue here with this, but then that partly comes down to the instructions. Some of the rods, they're not clear on the length of which rod you need because there's one for the weapon, there's one for each wheel, and there's one inside. You probably can't see it that well. Yeah, you can see it. But the chain here, the chain drive here, there's actually a rod that goes through here, and that helps with the gear. There's a little mechanism here. You probably heard it when I was moving. You can see it. It's in the center here. It's like moving back and forth. And I'm pretty sure this is what allows the weapon to move in the same direction regardless of which way the toy is being moved. But to get an idea of how big this thing is, Here's the original Backlash kit. It basically fits inside it. That's how big this kit is in comparison. And here's the El Diablo Custom Series. It's still bigger. This will give you a sense of scale. It's pretty massive. I'm not sure exactly how big it is. I've never actually measured it. But it's sizable. It's got to be the biggest toy. This may be up there with the Pro Series, BattleBots Pro Series back in the day. Even those may be arguably bigger, though. But this is pretty close. I mostly went for the back end, because not only is this the version that won the tournament, but it stands up. I mean, you can display it. You can't really display the, Season 1 design all that well. You have to put it on its side, but that takes up more space. One thing that's kind of disappointing about this kit is that if I pop off one of these little bolts here, you'll notice that just peels right up. This is basically like a flexible sort of plastic. That's kind of disappointing. I was expecting it to be more rigid when I was, putting the kit together. It's not. And that's more obvious with this. With the, with this half, you can see, I don't know if you can see it that well. Let's see if I can get it. Yeah. It just flexes. So this is one solid. So when you're putting this half together, this is one solid piece. This material here is one solid piece. So this whole thing is one long strip of basically flexible plastic. Here's the other side just to show you how you would assemble this bit. Unfortunately, what's another unfortunate side effect is that if you wanted to build the other kit, the variation with the pointed back, you're gonna have to go online to get that. That's the downside. It does not come with the instruction sheet. You're only building one kit. You're only building a Season 2 design, basically, in terms of the kit. So in order to not only build the other blade, which of course it comes down to, obviously, and as I showed you, it makes a difference. It makes a pretty distinct difference, and I'll show you again just to make sure. The two of them are not the same design. They're actually slightly different. But, once you get that, I mean, you'll be pretty far into the kit once you get that done. I mean, this is very robust. I've not had any issues with it. I mean, the blade spins very fast. What I'm going to do is I'm going to show you that. I'm going to show you what I've learned from building this kit. Because trust me, you will learn. You'll probably make a mistake here or there. So I'm going to turn this sideways, and you'll be able to see how this thing works when it's in action here. I don't know if you can see it that well. Nope, guess you can't. Let's see. Can't see it from that way. I'm going to put this guy up here, and maybe you can see it. Yep, there you go. I'll take a page from the Hex Bugs. Nope, gotta put it in front of you so you guys can see the kit. Here it is. That gives you a good idea of how it works. It can go pretty fast, like if you actually really let it go, and you can actually get a good deal of speed on it. And yes, it does run upside down, so you can run the kit this way. It's a little bit awkward, I think, in a sense, because you're not gripping anything solid. You're gripping the innards, really. But it's perfectly safe. So I mean, this is an awesome kit if you're willing to spend the time, and I think you should, because it is well done. It is, here we go. Very well designed, very robust. I mean, granted, it's a little too bad about a couple things I've already kind of brought up. The double axles, an axle for each wheel, the flexible sort of plastic for the the top, and of course the instructions not being quite as clear as they could have been. Of course, the fact that they don't include the other design. But it's really nice is that they show you each step and how it's supposed to look when it's finished. And they do give you little close-ups. They have little symbols, they tell you where to look carefully. Like when you're assembling certain bits, they flip it. They tell you to flip. They indicate turning the part around to get to the other side, to locate where you're supposed to put each individual part. I know I definitely screwed up with the mechanism part way through. Of course, you'll probably screw up somewhere on the line, especially if you miscount. But one thing I found is that regarding this kit, even a little bit of a difference, since this requires a chain, if you're off by one and one side or the other, you're going to have a problem. The kit has to be exact. Because what I found is that the weapon chain here, I was off by one. It didn't seem like much, it doesn't sound like much, but it's enough to upset the, it'll not only screw up the ability for the mechanism, because that will mean that the drive actually has more chains, more links than it actually needs, and will slacken. It'll actually cause a problem with the, with the mount here. So when you actually make it move, it'll be a little more jerky, if you will. It'll move at times. And one thing, and of course, you want to make sure that you get they come with a whole bunch of those little nuts that you secure inside certain places, like the weapon and the drive. You'll have to make sure you include those, because if you don't, especially with the mechanism that makes the weapon work with the wheels, it'll slip and you'll eventually lose that ability. I mean, granted, you don't necessarily have to do that. I mean, if you just want the ability to drive it and spin the weapon manually, go right ahead. You can pretty much skip some of the steps along the line, but I think it's pretty awesome what they've done with this. They went through a great deal of trouble to make sure this worked exactly as it does, looked exactly as it does on the show. Of course, they showed you a lot of details. And another thing I found out, of course, was that, I kind of already brought up the fact that the mechanism can slip. I didn't have a nut for the, to hold the mechanism that actually keeps the, there's a little white, I think there's a white gear somewhere inside here that's supposed to keep together. Yeah, because when you get the chain, if the chain's too short on the weapon, then you'll end up having it where the frame doesn't fit the way it should. It's just enough. It was all I needed to figure. Luckily, my dad was the one to help figure it out, and he managed to, we managed to get it to work without having to take the whole thing apart. All you had to do was, luckily, since they don't include the bottom half, you don't really have to do a whole lot. You can just look inside, carefully make the correction, and you're done. It's very well designed. It's rather large, I'd say. I mean, as I kind of already showed you with the comparisons, it is a great kit. It's going to take you a while, but once you get it done, you're going to have an awesome display piece, or I guess even a toy to play with. I mean, it's awesome. I mean, it gets a lot of speed. You can really had some fun with it myself. Not only assembling the kit, but also, just kind of having a little fun with it. Seeing how fast the blade can go, kind of how much it can take. I mean, once you put in the effort, you'll feel much better. I mean, there's Minotaur as well. I'm going to plan to get that and assemble that and review that. Hopefully, I'll do better with that one without. Maybe I can get it assembled on the first shot. I mean, this took a while. I definitely had some screw-ups every once in a while, but a lot of detail went into this. Props to Vex Robotics for actually getting this kit, as detailed as it is. It really makes you think, it gives you a good idea of how you're assembling the robot itself. So that's my review on the BattleBots Vex Robotics Tombstone kit. Thanks for watching.